Alright guys, so in this video, I'm just going to go ahead and put this out there. Their license agreement, it says that I can't share adapted material uh, based off of their animation set, which means that I can't share retargeted animations. And also, I have confirmed that this is for non-commercial purposes only. So for non-commercial purposes only, and you can't share the animations in any way. After you can share them if they're in their original format and have not been altered. That's basically it. Which means that since these come in BHV format, uh, I can't share the FBX ones that I retargeted. So I apologize for that. Now, I used Character Creator 4 to retarget those, but whenever they came in, this is the ground right here where that shadow is. You may not be able to see it, but I'll show you. So you'll see he's hovering off the ground. I had to come through all 77 of those animations, and I had to offset the hips. So I'm not going to go through that in this video. This is just a rundown, but if anybody wants to know how I did that, I'll do a video on it later, and I'll probably do videos on iClone later anyway, but it is a paid program. You might be able to do this with a trial version of iClone and Character Creator. You can try and see. I can't guarantee you that you'll be able to, but you can try. So anyway, moving back over here, I'll have the link to this in the description. It'll take you over here to their GitHub, which is where I was at right there inside of the license. Now, you can't just download the zip here. If you don't know how to clone a repo, I'll show you an easy way to do it. You can press this open with GitHub desktop and it'll take you to the download. For some reason, after you've downloaded it, it's actually supposed to launch it inside of the application, but for some reason on my computer, it's not doing that. So what you can do though is you can go to HTTPS right here and you can copy the URL and then open up the GitHub desktop, and you can go to File and Clone Repository and URL, and you can paste it there, and then you have to choose a directory to place it and then press clone. Once you've done that, you can go into the folder where you cloned it and you'll have something like this. You won't have that folder there. And you'll have one FBX here, not two. I was experimenting there. So this is an ASCII and it can't be opened in Blender, oddly enough, but you can import it into Unreal and then export it from Unreal and then import that into Blender, and that will work. Now, if you try to download the zip version of this right here, then these zips inside of here will be empty. That's why I say you have to clone it. Then you can extract them. The Lafon one is where the BVH files are. These are the ones that have already been, I guess, set up for the character that is in the FBX folder. This one right here. The C3D ones are the raw mocap animations from my understanding, so you probably won't want to try to use those. I would recommend using these BVH ones. And so you'll have to figure out a way to convert those if you don't want to, or if you don't have Character Creator 4, then you'll have to find a way to do this in Blender or somewhere else. But I won't really be able to help you much there. Now, I've seen somebody, he did it in Blender, and for whatever reason, it had no root motion on it. I don't know why that is, because I looked in here, and I'm looking at the rotation Z. Now, I don't know if his did have rotation on the root or not, but if it didn't, then that would mean that these already had root motion and somehow he stripped them on accident. Because these curves on the root and the hips don't match, and you can't get mismatching curves between these if you're transferring these by hand. So, but I will say that the position X and position Y of the hips do seem to be on the root, so there's no movement on the hips. If there is movement, it's probably very subtle. As you can see, it looks pretty straight to me. But so what's important for root motion is X and Y and Z, rotation. X, Y position and Z rotation. So if you can figure out how to do that in Blender, then you should be able to get this set up. So now that I've gotten that out of the way, you know how to clone the repository and download the animations, and you know how I converted the animations. Like I said, I had to offset the pelvis myself. But anyway, let me just go ahead and get in here and I'll show you. Now I did make a slight alteration to how I had this set up, and it did reduce the bobbing effect that we have right there, but it's not completely gone. And that might have a lot to do with the way this animation was done. Perhaps that these stretches just aren't quite long enough to accommodate or to prevent that bobbing effect. I don't know, but I only have one of them set up, so you'll see a few glitches here and there where it's missing data, and so it has to jump from one point to another. Now, the downside of having this set up the way I have it set up is you don't really have a whole lot of control. So you can tell it where you want it to go, but the root motion on the animations that are playing to match that desired direction is actually what's driving the motion. So let me just go ahead and explain this to you. I'll come over here to the anims on subject 1. And so I actually divided these into subject 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 because there's 5 subjects in that set, and each of them have their own animations, just so you know. And some of them have different animations that others don't have, but that's just how it is. Now, there's a few things that you need to actually get this working. You don't actually need a normalization set. A normalization set, a post-search normalization set, is meant, I believe, to it has something to do with having multiple post-search databases. Like I said, I've only actually spent a couple of hours even studying this, so I don't know a whole lot about this yet, but people were asking me to do a video on this, so I wanted to cover it for you guys. So if you go into plugins and go into animation, you do need motion trajectory plugin enabled, and you need the post search plugin enabled. Now there's probably about 5 billion motion matching in Unreal videos out there now, so I don't really feel like I have to go over this manually, but I'm going to go over like what I did change. So I went to animation, went to motion matching. I created a post search database and a post search schema. So the post search schema, this is my post search schema right here, and this holds data based off of how you want the searches within the database to be done. So I did create a mirror data table, but I ended up not using it because it caused problems. Apparently, whenever you mirror animations, it'll mess up the feet. So it was causing the feet to do funny stuff. So if you see videos where people have their feet and their feet are sliding, that's the reason why, is because they're mirroring the animations to try to cover more area, and that's actually causing problems for them and they don't realize it. So you have a role. I suppose you can have multiple skeletons within the schema, and you can have different roles for each of them. And these roles are being used by these channels. So you'll see that there's two channels here. There's a trajectory channel and a pose channel. So the trajectory channel, it basically maps out, from what I understand, the types of things that you want to, as far as the trajectory itself, that you want to keep track of. And so this is saying that, for example, the position XY, it's going to look back 0.4 seconds. And then the velocity XY facing direction XY, that's current position in the timeline. This is 0.35 positions ahead in the timeline. And then this is 0.7 seconds ahead in the timeline. And then you'll see they have different weights on them, which determine how much influence they hold over the decision of this trajectory. The trajectory itself has a weight of 7, and that is separate from the weights inside of here. So that's 7, this is 3, which means that the trajectory is going to be favored over the pose. I did actually change that weight on the pose. So I think, yeah, I think by default it's actually 1. It might be 2 by default. I don't remember. Maybe it was, yeah, it might be 1. I think it is 1 by default. Okay. So I did change mine to 3. Let's see what kind of effect that has on it. Okay. So it looks like increasing the pose weight actually does smooth it out just a little bit. It does have a slight effect on it, but everything has a cost in here. So if you increase the pose weight, then I'm not really sure what problems it would cause, to be honest with you. I haven't gotten that far into it yet. I'll tell you what I do know, though, is adding the neck and having it track the velocity and position of the neck, or one of the upper bones. I chose neck because it made the head move in a funny way. But whatever you have set here, you're also going to have to set on the pose history, collected bones inside of here. Otherwise, this won't do anything. It won't be any good. So I've introduced you to the setup I have inside of here. Like I said, I did have a weight of 3, but you know, I'm not sure how relevant that is. I was just experimenting. I didn't change the continuing pose cost bias or any of that in here. I did mess with the continuing pose cost bias, but increasing it too much will cause serious problems. And even increasing it slightly can cause problems. So see, I'm not pushing any buttons, but you'll see he's moving. And the reason why is because, and I'm not pushing any buttons right now. The reason why he's moving is because we've made it more favorable for it to continue playing animations. And so because of that, what can happen is it can cause it to be less responsive. So if I press to go in one direction, it may be the case that sometimes whenever you're in an animation, it might favor to ignore your input and just continue playing the animation. So that will be a decision that you'll have to make. I'm not pressing any buttons right there. You'll see he kept moving. After I let go, he kept moving. And that's because we probably increased it too much. So be careful how much you increase that. And I say increase that, I know it's confusing. I'm thinking of it as increasing the possibility of it continuing. But really, the lower the weight of a pose, the more likely it will be that pose will be chosen. And so for the continuing pose cost bias, if you lower it, you're actually increasing the chance that it's going to continue playing those poses one after the other, which means that you might press a key or you might let go of the key, but he'll keep running, basically. Uh, but there's other ways to mitigate that, and I'll probably get into that in a later video. So you do have different pose search modes down here. I've experimented with the other two, but didn't really get very good results. The VP tree is meant to be an optimized search mode, and this is probably what they're using in, if I had to guess, inside of their project. I keep forgetting the name of that game. Fortnite. Yeah, just to show how much I play it. But yeah, so you can set a preview mesh here. I don't really feel that's necessary, but if you want to, you can. And in order to get animations in here, you can press this add button and press one of these. These are the different kinds of things you can add. Composites, anim montages, multi-sequence, blend spaces, and sequences. So it supports all of that. And all you have to do is click and drag to get it in there. And you can also say, okay, well, maybe I want to see if this is causing any problems. This one right here, I'll disable it. And so it won't be evaluated while the game is running. So this means that it's a looping animation. And this means it's root motion enabled. They should all be root motion enabled, and I'll go over that right now. So if you open it up, you'll see that I not only enabled root motion, but I also forced root lock. And that part is actually important. And I'll show you what it does if you don't do that. So let's see. So I'm pressing in this direction, but he's not moving. And I'm pressing the key and he's not moving. Pressing forward. He started to move, but he's moving forward and left, not forward. But you see, it seems that if you don't force root lock, then, and I'm pressing back right now, you see it tends to do funny stuff. So yeah, you want that force root lock. And I'm not really sure yet why you have to force the root lock, but you do. Inside of your animation blueprint, you'll see the class defaults, root motion from everything. That's how I have it set up. But by default, it's set to root motion from montage only. And so it won't receive root motion from the animations. And so right now, it actually is working and it's more responsive. But because there may not be a matching pose to the movement of the capsule in this case, you may see some funky stuff. And so you'll see it's a little bit more jittery now because I'm not having and you'll see that my velocity over there is solid. So it's more responsive this way, but the animations the animation may not look quite as good. But it depends too. If you're not using dance cards, then if you're just using regular game animations, game ready animations that are looping and stuff like that, then they probably have a constant speed. Unlike these dance cards. These dance cards, he's moving at all kinds of different speeds, and so trying to match my actual character movement motion to the data set, so that the data set so that the pose selection will be good would be a logistical nightmare. So basically I would need to create a movement system that mimics the way the guy was actually moving in that animation, or you'll get stuff like this where it's just jittery and all kinds of weirdness. So also, the more animations you feed into this, the less likely it'll be that it'll jitter, because we'll have more animations to match that movement. So it depends, really. So it doesn't look too bad, and it is more responsive, but I mean, it's really jittery. It's not something you would want to use in a game. So that's why I'm using root motion from everything. You can do ignore root motion, and it basically does the same thing. So it's still really jittery. You see? So yeah, so that's how I got that working. I use root motion from everything, and I have force root lock and enable root motion. So that's the rundown on that. So also over here, you can choose to enable and disable it from here, but that's the same thing as pressing this button. You can disable reselection. If you disable reselection, then it can't loop back over and select different parts of the animation. I believe that forces it to select a different one inside of here, and if you only have one like me, that would probably be a bad idea. I mean, we can try it now though and see. I might be wrong. So let's see. I mean, it seems to be working the same as before, so I guess maybe I'm wrong. Yeah, I mean, it's still working the same as before. You see what happens though whenever you're using the root motion from everything. It seems like it's running a little bit worse than it was for some reason. Probably because I've been coming in here messing with stuff. Let's see. Okay, so disabling reselect might have actually been causing some problems, because it seemed less responsive whenever I disabled that. No, it's still doing it. So it might be my continuation bias. I think I messed with that. Oh no, I set it back. Okay. I don't know why it's doing that then, but he's slowing down. And that's because we're letting the animation drive it. And so sometimes it'll get into a position to where it'll think it needs to slow down because it's trying to match the velocity and direction, but the velocity and direction to some degree is actually being controlled by the animation itself. So like I said, that may not be a good way to do it, but I'm still learning. So that's the rundown on that. So the second thing you need to know is that if you come over to the, let's see, the blueprint, let me just open up, I don't even know where that guy is for some reason. There he is. Okay, I just overlooked him earlier. So if we open this up, you have to have a character trajectory right here. So that's needed. And then on the animation blueprint, on the event graph, you need some kind of reference to the character. Don't try to store a reference directly to the trajectory, the character trajectory. Don't do that. I tried that, and for some reason it doesn't work. So don't do that. Just store a reference to the character itself. And then on the anim graph, the only thing you really need, and I don't think I even have that hooked up. No, I don't. I was experimenting with that. But, so yeah, you need a motion matching, and there's actually more than one in here, so it's a little confusing. I I don't know what's up with my ability to talk today. So you see that motion match here? That's not the one you need. You need the one down here under pose search, the one with this icon. I don't know why their names are so similar. It's weird. One of them's a function though. The other one's a function. So you need to grab that one, and then you need to grab the pose history, and there's only one of those, I believe. So the pose history, anything you feed into the source will be taken into consideration for pose selection, from my understanding. So you get the motion matching component, you choose your database, you have to set a trajectory. So I'm just going to show you how I did it. So I went to this, and then I referenced the character trajectory from the character reference itself. And so that's how I did that. So I actually increased the pose count, the maximum amount of poses that can be stored. That will increase memory, but I think it gives it more poses to cross-reference. That's on the pose history, and you'll see that, like I said before, if on your pose search schema, which stores all your settings for it, whatever you added under your pose channel right here, these bones, they all need to be set up right here as well. Because these are the bones that this pose history is going to collect information on from whatever you're feeding into it. So with that being said, you wouldn't want to get a foot placement node and put it between here, because if you did that, then it would have trouble trying to match, trying to choose the next pose based off of this altered animation. But if you place it afterwards, it won't affect it at all. Also, over here on your motion matching, you have a blend time. You can set blend profiles, and I'll show you what those are. A lot of people still don't know what these are. So if I just create a time, weight, and blend, and then we come back over here, you'll see that we have the time and the weight, but the blend profiles, those are only used for the other nodes inside of here. The well, it's for like the, man, my mind is going blank here. I don't know what's up with me today. Anyway, so the pose reselect history. Right, this prevents reselection of poses within this time period. So this is half a second right here. So in this case, I'm telling it by default it's 0.3 seconds, and I was just telling it don't select a pose within 0.5 seconds. That might actually not be a good idea. Now I did ask it not to jump back 1 second in time. I was just experimenting with some of those settings, but maybe 0.5 is more appropriate. And so that will help make sure that the animation is being driven forward in time, and that it won't suddenly snap back. And so you'll see the jerking has reduced significantly. So you don't want to prevent it from going too far back in time, because that will cause serious problems. So maybe try to stay under a second if you do set that. but actually setting it to negative 0.5, I think that kind of makes this irrelevant right here. So right foot, left foot, and neck. Yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. I mean, I enabled use inertial blend, and I increased the max active blends from 4 to 5. I'm not really sure how relevant that is. Like I said, I've only had a few hours to even look at this over, but a lot of people were asking me to cover this, so I wanted to show you guys how I pulled that off. I'm going to have to look into this further. It might take me a couple of months before I come out with another video on this. But, there's a lot of other good videos out there. Just if you have time, dive into them and check them out. There's a lot of good information out there. But also, you'll see I hooked this leg IK up afterwards, and you'll see it's not causing any problems. So with the pose selection. You'll see there's still a few hitches in places, but it's not that bad. Now the problem with these dance cards is these things can actually, they're not easy to do. So let me show you. So if I come into this animation and I uncheck that, let's see here. Let me just reopen this. There we go. That refreshed it. So this is around the area that they used. And so if we go into the top down, you'll see that this is roughly 12 meters by about 8 meters. That's a pretty big space. So the Move.ai AI animation software that's starting to get real big, I looked into that, and if you have 6 iPhones, you can cover an area of 6 by 6 meters, which would be, let me see. So it would be this far, which is half of that length. So 6, and then 6. So you'll see you'd be really limited to the area of movement right here. You wouldn't have a whole lot of space to move in. And so trying to perform these dance cards like they're doing would be basically impossible to do within such a small, tight space. So I looked into it, and just for the cameras alone, to cover 9 by 9, which would be to cover this length, but you'd also have 1 meter further in this direction, unless you rearranged them some way to cover a longer area. But that would cost you about $95,000 just for the cameras. Then you need the space. You need to anchor them, like up on the ceiling or the walls or something. And then the software also, I think it costs about $5,000 for the software. And then you have to pay a maintenance fee of about $2,500 after that. And that's if you want all the important features of the software, but they have a cheaper one that's like half the price, like $2,500, and then like I think $500 or $800 a year after that. But yeah, anyway, that's basically the rundown on it, guys. Sorry I couldn't provide those animations. If somehow, some way, I'm given permission by Ubisoft to do that, then I'll come back and I'll just share the animations with you, and I'll walk you through the entire setup. But that's pretty much all I have. I'll see you guys in the next video.